So every Sunday for the past 2 years, people with compassion and humanity have been turning out to march in opposition to the genocide happening to Palestinians. And one thing really to be mindful of is the intersectionality of all protests, that, for instance, compassion doesn't stop at one people, one group, that when we start marching, for example, for Palestinians, we suddenly realise that there are so many others who suffer, and it is an intersection of different causes that we march for. And you'll see flags that are Indigenous Australian flags. West Papuans with the Morning Star flag, Kanaks, Tamils, all refugees, LGBTQIX, trans, everyone who has experienced oppression and erasure is represented and marched for. And when we say we march for Palestine, yes we do, but we march for all. As one of the chants goes, once Palestine is free, we are all free. We can't free one people without freeing others. So this Sunday, 12th of October 2025, marked exactly 2 years since these particular wave of protests and marches had begun. And it's been an unbroken sequence of protests in our city. And it also marked the coinciding of the first tentative stages of this next ceasefire, which we hope will hold. And we hope that the allowance of journalists and humanitarian workers into the space that has been so horribly devastated over these last 2 years can bear witness to what's been happening, and finally allow some of these images to be broadcast unfiltered to the world. But this Sunday, after this space of the Melbourne State Library was emptied of people as they progressed along the march throughout the route that was taken, within half an hour something really weird happened. In the space that was occupied by all of these people, we soon saw this. About 30 or 40 far-right agitators who reoccupied the space that was only half an hour earlier occupied by pro-Palestinian supporters. A handful of people did stay behind from the march, as happens every single week, running stalls, selling lemonade, stickers, posters, raising money for families in Gaza, raising money for humanitarian aid to be sent there, and raising awareness of the genocide that's continuing to happen. This group of far-right agitators were actually escorted by police. Those whom the Victorian police escorted in included people with Australian flags, Zionist flags, and were of a particular nationalist fervour, yelling abuse at the pro-Palestinian protesters who were there manning the stalls. And interestingly, the police weren't facing them, but were facing us, as though we were the problem. One woman manning the stalls turned to us and said, "Why are the police facing us? Are we safe?" And that question, am I safe, kind of sums it all up. It sums up the way that the police framed their escorting of the Zionist protesters into our space, and it frames the way that the media portrayed it. This picture is from the ABC. Notably, it crops out all the police, when in actual fact it looked like this. This is what was cropped out. The police escorting the protesters up, facing outwards towards the pro-Palestinian people, while allowing abuse to be hurled at pro-Palestinian protesters. The ABC photo, flags raised, no context, no protection detail, no line of blue facing the wrong way, showed us that a photograph can lie by omission. And this omission tells us a lot. It tells us whose fear counts and whose doesn't. The media shows protesters as the problem, while the real machinery of power, whether that be police, institutions, or even journalists like those at the ABC or the Australian or other legacy media that tend to protect the Zionist narrative and defame the pro-Palestinian narrative, shields the aggressors and reframes the story. It's as if the new narrative is the protesters are going too far. And that's the next distraction, because it's a distraction against the fact that journalists are now re-entering Gaza. It's a distraction from the images they'll bring back, the cities turned to rubble, the faces of children, the evidence of what's been done in our name. So here's what I want to say. As someone who's taught young people to look closely at questions, to see what's left outside of the frame. Who benefits from outrage being redirected? Who's counting on you to stop paying attention to what's going on in Gaza? Because our eyes are needed here, not on distractions, but on the truth. And the truth is that people of conscience are standing up every single week for a ceasefire, for humanity, for a world that doesn't look away, or looking directly at the world's atrocities and saying, no, we don't want to accept this anymore. So don't be fooled by what they crop out. Look again and keep looking until justice is no longer something that we have to demand.